Hello, folks. Welcome to another episode of the High Power Archery Podcast. Yes, it's been a long time since you've heard from us. There's a lot of reasons behind that. We'll be sure to get into it. But we're back. That's the important thing. And we've had a couple of episodes that were loaded and lost, and yeah, I'll get into that another time. But in the meantime, we have a guest on our show. Now, for those of you who listen to the Off-Center Archers, you may have heard of this guest before. We're going to try to keep it clean for this one, but if we have a mistake here or there, it's not my fault, not his, it's nature. Anyway, I got Doug Marholz, who's been on the Off-Center Archers before, and he's coming here. We're going to talk about a couple of things. You know, it's nice to have new people on the show as always, but Doug, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been doing with the Off-Center guys when you talk to them?
Everything's good here. I mean, we're getting to the end of our state ASAs, starting to take over. Now we're building into our club, trying to get it up to standard to where we can start hosting shoots now that we've had leadership changes, which we'll get into.
The leadership change. Yeah. That's always
the mighty leadership change. Out with the old, in with the new. So.
Yeah, so
I've been shooting for probably now almost 5 years, all because of Anthony going up there for her vacation and going, here, we're going to go to my range, and here's a bow I got set up for you, and see how you like it. Oh, by the way, I bought your son a recurve. That's how it started.
Yeah. Well, it's always good to get the kids involved, and that's usually the way we suck in the parents sometimes, so I guess he knew what he was doing in that case.
Yeah, the kid stopped shooting. He's like, I don't want to get up early with you, Dad, so I just want to sleep in. I'm like, okay, well, I'm addicted now, so you're not. I'm at my range usually by dawn. So I'm there until about from the second the sun hits the range till about noon, almost every weekend.
See, that's dedication in there. That only makes you a better shooter anyway, and that's what you probably need to do. Like you mentioned that you're trying to, get some leadership straightened out your club. At my club here in New Jersey, I had taken over as vice president for the beginning of the year. And let's just say that doing that, and you go in there with all the greatest hopes in the world, trying to make a difference, trying to change things. And then you see the other side of things and you find out what people are really about and how not nice some people in membership can be. You're like, you know what? And you're giving your whole life towards this thing. I mean, at one point I was putting in maybe 27 hours a week into the vice president's role, which handled memberships and stuff like that. And I was getting nothing but grief from other board members and from the membership. And it got to be to the point where I couldn't do my podcast. I had other stuff going on with the family. And I just say, you know what? Enough is enough. I can't do this anymore. And I flat out resigned. Tried to change some stuff. Didn't work. Didn't get, and it's not like you're looking for appreciation, but at the same time, you think you get in there trying to make things a better place, and instead you get hit with all the resistance in the world, and I didn't particularly care for that. So I was like, yeah, this is not for me anymore, and I just flat out resigned, and they couldn't find anyone to replace me, and then they started realizing, I guess, all the stuff that I had been doing at the time. I still managed the website, but yeah, I was like, dude, this is not the place for me. They finally got someone to take the job, and, best of luck to her, but I'm not sitting through 2 meetings a week and the whole thing. And not for nothing, part of it is you have to be on these board meetings. And basically they're like 2 hours, 3 hours long, and all people do is argue. And
wow.
I'm not into that. And then if you couldn't make it for a meeting, I had a funeral to go to, and I couldn't make it for one of the meetings, and I got my head bitten off for that. I'm like, yeah, no, this is definitely not the place for me to do this. Yes, I go there with the girls all the time. This is where we shoot. It's 24 hours. And I'm happier being just a member, or in this case, the webmaster who has to do just a little bit of stuff here and there, than actually being on the board and being, up there with it. Like, it just wasn't worth it to me. But I hear that you've got similar issues over there where you try to take over and change things for the better as well.
Oh, yeah. It's funny. Listening to your story is like, wow, we got it easy here. We don't have that kind of problem with board meetings and stuff like that. There's, our officer group is a group of 5 of us. I'm the range master. My wife is the treasurer. And she doesn't even shoot. She just wanted to be supportive to the club.
That's great.
Because it's something I love.
Yeah.
Then we have our secretary, president, and vice president. But, we're always in communication with each other, so we really don't need official meetings.
Mm-hmm.
But then we're also just starting out after we've taken over from from the club, from the old leadership. One, our president was elected in last year to allow at the time, our current president to be able to step down and not have to deal with it anymore. He's like, I'm done with this. I need somebody to just take over. And he quit 6 months in.
Yeah.
So that caused a big hoopla. Who was in charge? Because by our bylaws, the only standing member left was our secretary. Everyone else is kind of like, we're done.
Yeah.
And then we had our supposed VP of maintenance acting like he was full bore in charge. We're like, no, we need to have an election. We need to get someone. We need to get reelect the vice president, a president, treasurer, and all this stuff. And we got a bunch of heat and flack for it, but we got out of it. We got people in there that wanted it, and oddly enough, it was basically just the five of us. It seemed like nominating each of us for these positions, and no other participation of our 170 something plus membership said anything.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest thing. You want participation in the club, and no one wants to participate, but they want to bitch.
Yeah, I mean, it was the same thing with our club, because basically the vice president that preceded me, he had all kinds of medical issues and he could not continue this year. So back in November, he vacated the position right before you had to do billing for the upcoming year. And billing's all done manually. I'm in computers and I know how to do, how to organize stuff on an Excel sheet and all that, but the stuff that I got was completely disorganized, and I put it all together and I made it work. But the bigger thing was that nobody wanted to take the job. Literally for about a month or two, he wasn't doing anything, and nobody wanted it. So finally, I'm just sitting there at a board meeting, and because I was a webmaster at the time, and they had me get onto the board meeting. I'm listening to the stuff, and I'm like, listen. If no one's going to do it, I'll do it. You know what I mean? At the time, I had no idea I was jumping on my own sword to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, this would be fine. It'd be great. And then all of a sudden, I find out what it's really all about, and I'm like, yeah, now I know why he didn't want to continue doing this. And it got to me to be so bad. I was like, this is horrible. I cannot do this anymore. And it's a certain point where you have mental sanity that you want to maintain. And that did not work out for me. But, we all stress, well, for archery to grow, people got to get involved. You want to get involved with your local club and all that. But when it comes down to it, you find out nobody wants to do that. And it's the few people.
No one wants to help.
Yeah.
No one wants to volunteer to go, hey, we're having a work party to help clean up the lanes, do this. And the people organizing it are the only ones that show up, and every now and then you'll get a couple of stragglers going, oh, I'll help.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, they, at this range, they have a great outdoor range captain who manages everything out there, and he gets people come down, because we have like 20 acres over there, and they've got to cut down trees, they got to get the paths cleared and all that, and that's great that they do that. But getting people to volunteer for those work parties, it seems like it's the same people every single time, maybe 10 members who actually do it, and the rest of them don't do anything. And when you have a membership of over 150 people or whatever it is, and you have that few people participating in it regularly, then that kills you. And they were charging, they charge, you have a certain amount of work hours, and if you don't make the work hours, then you got to pay $6 an hour or whatever it is, or $10, I forget what it was, $10 an hour at the end of the year for the work hours that you didn't make up. So the membership is relatively inexpensive, and you pay your work hours. Yeah. So some people just opting to pay the work hours, they didn't care. And I'm like, that's fine if that's what you want to do. But when it turns into everybody doing that, that's an issue. And then with COVID, since they said the club was literally closed for half the year, it was closed for a couple of months where you couldn't have anything in the indoor shooting except for like 10 people at a time. They said, we're going to cut the work hours in half. And then that turned into a whole other billing issue and people wanting credit for this. Oh, I prepaid my work hours last year. And then it just completely gets to be monotonous and crazy. And then you see the really bad side of people. And I'm like, generally there's nothing wrong with people. All people have something good and something bad to them. But when it comes to things like that, you really see the bad side of people. And I was like, I'm not interested in seeing the bad side of people anymore. That's why I let it go. But, clubs are a great place to learn from other people and to get involved. Sometimes there are some people over there that you don't want to be around. But
we have the same same kind of work ethic here with a lot of our members that are always trying to help out each other. Yeah. We're always giving each other pointers. We're always, oh, dude, your grip on your bow is just not right. You need to hold it like this, and trust me, and a lot of them, some people just like, no, leave me alone. I just want to go up to the private lands. Go right ahead. But if you're at our main area where everyone, we have our 20 through our 100 targets, everyone's kind of always goofing around, talking, always coming up, helping each other out with their form, whether it be, their grouping, and all that. But when it comes to our participation for helping around the range, that's where, a lot of our members are just like, we'd rather, if we could, we'd rather pay more just to come shoot and leave.
Yeah.
Like, really? You don't want to take pride in what our club is, but hey, if that's what you want to do, we can do that.
And I think that it's not just limited to us. I think this is a problem that goes on in all clubs all around the country, all around the world for that matter. It's like everybody wants to have access to the resource, but nobody wants to do the work that is involved. A very small percentage of the actual membership are willing to do the work. Now, we're a private range, so you have to be a member in order to go there. So we used to have like a public shooting night, which is like our Friday night shoots, and that was the only time that people could come in who weren't members. And the other time you come in when you're not members, when you're shooting a league because you don't have to be a member, or if you're shooting one of our 3D shoots or one of our indoor target shoots, something like that, you can do that. But I think, I've heard this from other people in different parts of the country. I actually had a guy in Sweden who was starting out a club, and he was telling me, our biggest problem right now is trying to get people to help. I'm like, okay. And that's the biggest problem that everyone faces right now. You want to have a good thing, and it's important that you have good people, because otherwise what starts out as a good thing will slowly deteriorate into something bad, or it'll fall apart, and it won't be there forever. Our particular club has been here since the 60s. And it started out in a small place, and then they moved it to this place that they have, and they built an indoor range. They have the outdoor range. It's open 24 hours. So it's a great thing. A lot of people don't even know it's there. But it's based on a core group of members who take care of everything, and the rest of them basically take it for granted for what they have. Because if you don't care for something, it might not be there forever, and it could disappear just as quickly as you found it. And we're trying not to do that. And I tell you, it's really, really hard. And I can only imagine, like, with all the stuff going on at your range over there, once you get into the weeds and you're in management and stuff, you start to find out about other things going on behind the scenes that you didn't know about.
Oh yeah, we hit that minefield is running within the last month when we took over control at the beginning of last month, and when I reached out to you about doing this.
Yeah.
That's when we first took control, and then since then we keep finding little mines like, really, you're doing all this, no club approval, just spending money at Lowe's and Shell and whatever have you with the club card, and you have no receipts to show for it, but you act like you're the club's god because you did everything around the range by yourself.
Exactly.
Well, when people tried to help and offer help, you snooted them off. And now we're kind of like opening our eyes like, wow, you really didn't do much. You just played it out like you were doing a lot. Yeah. I mean, luckily our club is located in a county park. So a lot of the trimming and stuff, the park comes in and does for us. Obviously, our 3D range is literally our deal. The park can't get back there to mow or trim. We have to go do it.
Yeah.
But for our field lanes and and the general upkeep, the park takes care of.
That's great.
So our maintenance is kind of fairly low. But on the other hand, I mean, like I said, our maintenance guy who was doing everything for us. We within the last 6 months, he spent $2,000 at Lowe's. We're like, "Where's your receipts?" I don't have them. Really? What about the 2 or 3 times you're at Shell? You have receipts for those? Nope. We're trying to rebuild the club to where we can have NFAA shoots here. We can have ASA shoots here. And we're in a hole already. We got to dig ourselves out.
Yeah, I get that sort of thing.
but it's just funny. We love the people who are now dedicated to getting the club better. Some people are starting to turn around and go, wow, you guys are really wanting to change. We had one member turn around and go, she wants to be more a part of it, and that's when I reached out to you.
Yep.
She wants to start a JOAD program and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's where you want to go. You want to start out with programs that are going to bring people to the club. There are some pitfalls with that too, just so you know. If you start out a JOAD program, because then now you can have a free JOAD program or one with a nominal fee, and then you have other JOAD programs where people charge premiums to get into them, and there's waiting lists and all kinds of other craziness that goes with it. I'm not saying that's the case with the club that I belong to, but JOAD program and the club I belong to, and I don't even teach as part of that one, they have a severe waiting list on that one. And right now, JOAD's been canceled because of the whole COVID thing, and I don't think they're restarting until the fall or whatever it is. My JOAD students, we've gotten them going and all that. It's not as big a group as I usually have, but they don't shoot at that range right now. So I'm like, okay, it's hard to manage at the same time, but those programs do bring people into the fold, as it says. And you have to have something like that, because not for nothing, if you don't have a setup like that, and this goes out to all the people who are listening to this thinking about forming clubs, because funny, one of my listener questions has to do with setting up a club, but if you don't have something that's going to bring people in, then people are going to start to look at your club as kind of like, snobby, exclusive sort of thing. Oh, well, that's just for guys who know how to shoot. They don't want to teach anybody new over there or anything like that. And there's a lot of people who want to learn. And since the whole COVID thing broke out, not for nothing, the people from different different walks of life are getting into this. They're getting into archery and want to find out about it. Now, some of them are just like, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, I want to try it. I didn't like it, or I'll try it, and it's, a flash in the pan, and they're done with it 2 months after they start. But for every one of those, I got another person who actually sticks with it and loves it. And at the same time, I've got people who shoot compound, and I got people who shoot trad, and then sometimes the clubs, not for nothing, I was a member of a club, not this particular one, that was like that, where it's either all trad or all compound, and the two of them hate each other. And you can't mix lines with the two people. I'm like, for real, this is how it's going to be. I actually left that club because of that. But you'll see things like that. Now, me, I'm a certified coach. I do my whole thing. I've been doing this forever, the whole 9 yards with it. And people just know me as a compound shooter. I started out shooting traditional recurve and Olympic recurve. And I was taught how to do it. And just because you don't see me do it, when people go down to the outdoor range over here, they'll see me with a recurve bow sometimes. Why? I prefer to relax with a recurve bow. I just go and have a good time. But then,
when I get started, I just went right to compound. Like, I don't have time to learn that. I'm in my 40s. I don't have time to learn that.
So I shoot my recurve.
I don't have the patience.
I'll shoot my recurve for giggles, and I also hunt with it. But I'll also do all my long distance hunting with my compound, and I shoot, professionally and target and all that with my compound. It's two different things, but you have to be open to everything. And I think that a lot of clubs fall into the clique of either this is a compound club or this is a recurve club, but it's not both, and you can't be like that. So I'm sure you have a mix of both types of people over there at your club.
Oh, we got everyone here. I mean, our main instructor, Angie, she shoots Olympic recurve. But she teaches everyone this when they come in for the beginner classes. We have all these recurve bows for her to use, and then to learn on. And then if you want more advanced lessons, she'll teach them off. She'll pull them off to the side. We don't have any other programs other than kind of like the beginner courses. Yeah, that's about all we have here. But we get a lot of everybody, but majority of the people I see here are majority compound target shooters. Our 3Ds do pull in all the trad archers for sure. Mm-hmm. It's gotten to the point to where we actually started doing a 3D. Here's a 3D just for trad guys. Go have fun. Yeah. And they'll come out once every 3 months and do a whole day where they'll go out do however many targets we put out that day, and then come back and they'll do little like trad games, like a running bear and stuff like that. Yeah. You try to keep it interesting. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. We have, like I said, majority of our members are very open, very friendly, but there are those, don't be that guys here too. I mean, every club has them, so when I first started listening to you and I started hearing the don't be that guy, I'm like, I can name off the guys right off the bat. In fact, my first trip here was with my son, and I ran into that don't be that guy who goes, oh, no, we're doing something over here. I'm going to go unlock one of the targets over here. You guys go over there.
Yeah.
But this is the public range over here. No, we're busy. We can't be bothered because I had my son with me.
Oh, boy.
So I saw later on exactly how they work because that was my first experience with them. Okay, whatever. But I was dedicated. I wanted to learn. And then as I got to know these people, I'd start seeing them do it all the time. It's like, really? Just because they have a child with them, you're going to push them off the main target lanes and don't even kind of invite them in and help them out. Okay, yeah. I see your game.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh, we know that there's so many of those types in every club, and you either got to root them out or you just got to tell them, like, this will not be accepted over here. You got to get with the program, and you can't.
Well, that's exactly that was one of the main reasons why the group of us that decided to try to take over leadership here did it, because we were tired of the fact that they wanted to try to make the club still kind of private. There's no big advertising for it. We don't take part in any of the event shoots in the area. We have a lot of them. Yeah. We're in Florida, for crying out loud. We got a lot of friggin' events that go on. I'm constantly at ASA shoots. Our president's constantly at ASA shoots. Yeah. He's out for Shooter of the Year down here in Florida in the NFAA shoots. So he's, that's the kind of person we needed. Unfortunately, our past presidents were, basically retired and didn't want to do anything.
Yeah.
And if you're not involved in the sport, you're not going to bring in people. Yep. You can't have competitions at your club. You're not going to get people coming out of town to check out, to go to shoot, go, wow, this is actually a nice course. I'm not that far from here usually. Mm-hmm. I can come here now.
Yep.
And it's just the stuff that we want to do to grow the club and get, obviously, like I said, the JOAB program. You get the young in, we have constant people here.
Yep.
So
yeah, our deal
that's where we're at.
Our deal was always, and my own personal thing with high power archery has always been, if you want to learn, we're willing to teach you, and it doesn't make a difference what financial background you come from. If you can't afford it, whatever, everybody can learn no matter what. And unfortunately, some places make it very snobby, so you can't. They're like, well, you have to have your own equipment, and you have to join, and you have to do this, and they try to root out and exclude a lot of people from it. I never particularly cared for that thing. Unfortunately, it's something that you see a lot, and I never really appreciated that sort of thing.
Yeah, every time new people can't come here, I'm always going. They're like, so what's the deal here? I'm like, this area here is public, and the two end lanes right by the gate are public. Mm-hmm. You guys can come in here anytime, whatever have you. The benefits of membership are, straight up this. You get the codes to all the locked targets, to where if you want a private lane by yourself, you can unlock the target, and that's yours. You don't have to worry about anyone coming over there. You get the locked combination for the main gate, so that way you can just drive up to the main target area instead of parking. I'd say our lane is about a half a click.
Yeah. From
the gate. Who wants to walk that with all the equipment sometimes we carry?
Okay.
Nobody.
Yeah.
And then obviously your funds help pay for the targets, the upkeep, and everything else. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And 9 times out of 10, when you tell the people that, they're like, "Oh, where do I sign up?"
Exactly. Exactly.
But we're on it. I'm always honest with them. You don't have to be a member. There's public lanes here and here. But here's the benefits of being a member. It's not that expensive.
See, you give them a small taste of what they could have, and if they can't afford to be a member, at least they have the public lanes there, and eventually maybe they will become a member when stuff changes for them. And like, I was waiting to do this. I can afford it. I'm going to do it now. And that's great. That's very great. Unfortunately, up here in the Northeast, it's a little harder to do that sort of thing. Most of the ranges are all private, as you would say. In our case, it's a members-only range, but you can join as a membership. I think the membership for a year is like $150 or something like that, so it's not that much. Other places,
yeah, ours is you're going to choke at ours. Ours for a single membership is $50 and $75 for a family.
Oh man, wow! See that makes all the difference in the world.
So it's not that expensive, and if you're joining now, it's prorated. We don't charge you the full $50. It's $25, $30.
Yeah, can't go wrong with that sort of thing,
We prorate it.
We get this sort of thing, and we get people who always want to come and try stuff out. And in your case, they can try it out, and it's great. If you have access to people who know what they're doing and are friendly or willing to help others, then it only makes the place more better. In my case, I could be at the indoor range. A lot of people, first of all, about 80% of the membership who doesn't know who I am. Even though I'm the webmaster, they know me as probably the webmaster, if at that, because they maybe mention me once or twice at the meetings when everybody's dialed into the meeting or everybody's there in person. But aside from that, no one really knows who I am. Now that I was vice president for a little bit of time, they all know me, and they all probably hate me, so I care less. But, when I'm at the range, people don't know who I am or what I do. So when I try to help somebody, they're like, oh, you kind of know your stuff. I'm like, a little bit. I mean,
just a little bit,
just a wee bit. And then they actually had one person say, I was listening to this podcast and the guy really knows what he's doing. You should check it out because maybe you can contribute a little bit to it. And I'm like, really, what podcast is that? And he said it was mine. I'm like, oh yeah, I heard about that guy. And then somebody goes and one of my girls goes and taps me like, that my coach that's his podcast. He's like, no, he doesn't sound like that guy. I'm like, yeah, that's his podcast.
Here, let me call you on your phone. Then you'll really hear the mic difference and the voice change.
Because like right now, getting into the here and now, I've already started to put stuff on YouTube. Now, YouTube is a whole other animal to deal with, whatever. I started recording some videos for it, but the videos got lost. But I started converting some of my podcasts into YouTube videos. Like I think I managed to get one of them up there. And then you got to get a certain amount of subscribers before they give you a vanity URL. Otherwise, it's like youtube.com/18-digit characters for your YouTube channel. So I'm like, oh, great. I've got to hit 100 subscribers before I get my vanity URL. That's wonderful.
That's wonderful.
Okay. So I think I put up one podcast, and just believe me, trying to engineer those things to turn them into videos from an audio podcast, it's a whole other nightmare.
Oh, no.
Doing that, putting one in, I think I got like 40 subscribers in the first day. So I'm like, oh, maybe this won't take that long at all. But I'm in the process of doing that. Aside from that, no one really knows, unless they've been to one of my seminars, what I look like. And like, they know me as the voice. They don't know me as anything else. If you've been to one of my seminars, then they definitely know what I look like because I'm up close and personal when I'm teaching people. Even when I'm doing tuning seminars, I'm like all over them. Like, this is what you got to do. This is what you got to do. This is how you going to do it. What do you mean you don't know how to do this? All kinds of stuff like that. So a lot of these people don't know that it's actually me at the range. And I'm like, that's fine with me. I don't care. I'm still willing to help anybody. But I find it comical when it comes up like, yeah, I heard of this podcast. You should really listen to it. I'm like, oh, yeah. Well, maybe. It sounds like the guy really knows what he's talking about. I don't know. And for the life of me, when they do find out who I am or whatever, or they go to, I had one person come from the range to one of my seminars and not know it was me teaching. They're like, oh, you here for the seminar too? I'm like, yeah, I'm teaching it. They're like, what do you know about this? I'm like, uh-huh. You find out.
Just sit back, relax.
Sit back, break out your notebook, and let's go. We take it from there. And, starting a USA Archery program like you want to do over there, if you got somebody who's a level 2 coach, they can start their own JOAB program. That's all you got to be. You got to be a level 2 instructor, and you can do it. And like I said,
got one level 3, but she doesn't have time to do the coaching, so we're, Angelica wants to start the JOAB program.
Yeah,
is going to go through all the paces to get it, and then some of us officers now, we're all like at least going to get a level 1, or a level 2, so that way not only do we know how to while we're running the club, but then we feel better when we're telling somebody how to shoot or how they're doing how they go about things.
And basically, the level 2 course is all taught in one day, and you get your certification and all that.
Yep.
If you can't find a local level 2 course to go to, then let me know, and maybe I'll go down there one weekend and just do it myself for you because I teach them. So I can go down there and do a level 2 course for you. Everybody be all good and happy, certified, and you go on your merry way and do what you got to do.
Yeah.
But I can also help you set up the program and all. It's very easy to do. JOAD is very rewarding for a lot of kids because they can earn pins and all kinds of other, achievement awards as they go along. And it's and it's not based really on competition because it's what they're doing in their own competition with themselves because they're trying to make a certain score. They're trying to do this, and they find that trying to reach and attain that, it's all about them. It's not about anybody else. So some of them work harder than others trying to make it. And it really is rewarding for not only for them, but for the coaches. And if you know how to teach the right way, don't get me started on that one. If you know how to teach the right way, and it has nothing to do with having the skill, it's how to deal with people. If you know how to teach them the right way, then there's not going to be a problem, and everyone will learn. And again, right now, our biggest problem that we have is YouTube. This coming from a person who's about to put some videos on YouTube, but our biggest problem is YouTube because everybody, their mother, their first cousin, and maybe even their long-lost uncle has got a video on YouTube about how to shoot. And
including Mark Zuckerberg.
And most
I had to say that one.
You had to, didn't you?
I had to. After I saw that video, I was like, I was doing it wrong the whole time?
And most people don't know how to, let alone teach someone how to shoot. They should not be doing a YouTube video on it. I think I can count on my one hand how many good videos there are on YouTube, and they're few and hard to find. Dudley's videos for Knock On are probably the most instructional and easiest to understand. Other people, I'm telling you right now, if you listen to half the stuff they did, you'd probably put an arrow through your arm. So I'm like,
I'm glad I'm not a YouTube freak. Because I talked to Anthony. Anthony's just, if you got to watch a video on anything, watch it from Dudley. All right, that's all I had to hear. I'm not going to go deep dive on YouTube because I hear the horror stories from him through the podcast. I'm like, I'll just listen to Ant.
Now
he knows what he's talking about.
Now down by you in Florida, I'm sure that everyone goes to the pro shops to get set up because you don't have a pro shop associated with your range, do you?
No.
Okay.
The closest one is about 2 miles down the road.
Okay.
And they don't really associate with us because the owner is a bit of a dick.
Oh, okay.
But like I said, that's the one I had mentioned to you before we started was the Hoyt Purist.
Okay.
You go in his shop with anything but a Hoyt, and he gives you guff.
And I've talked about those types on the show before. You know what they're like.
I'm just here to get strings put on. Well, you're not shooting a Hoyt. Like, really? You're just, and then he overcharges. It's like, really?
Yeah.
I went in there with arrows that I needed cut because I had a competition coming up. I didn't have an arrow saw. My buddy who normally cuts them for me was at a national shoot. I'm like, oh, no. So I had to go to him. He charged me almost $2 an arrow. I'm like, fudge. If I didn't need these arrows cut, I wouldn't have gotten them done. So I'm like, killing me, Holmes.
Yeah, at our
and
range,
then the other,
go on.
Yeah, the only other shop we had, it was in a gun shop, and they closed it. I'm like, so my only choices are, I think the closest two are over an hour and a half away from our range.
Yeah.
So that kind of sucks.
and this range of yours doesn't have any kind of like indoor clubhouse or anything like that where you can set stuff up.
We're all outdoor.
Mm-hmm.
Beauty and the downfall of Florida.
Yeah.
Nice weather 9 times out of 10. Hot as heck afternoon.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, right now here in New York, we've had 100-degree weather in the last couple of days. It's absolutely insane. We're not Florida. We're up in New York for crying out loud, and we're getting 100 degrees out here. So humidity is
Florida weather here. It may be 80 degrees, but that humidity is what's going to kill you.
Yeah. So it's like I'd rather be in Afghanistan than be in New York or Florida when it's 100 degrees. But that's a subject for another day. Anyway.
Yeah, if it gets 100 in Florida, yeah. No, you don't want to be anywhere outside.
But, without having a pro shop that can support you guys, sometimes you have to rely on the membership. They're like, okay, we have a guy that if you need to set up or tune your bow, he can help you out with this. And like over here at the local outdoor range, because it's a public range by my house, there are no shops on the entire island. There's no shop here. I have the only pro shop, and it's built out of my house that I run over here. But with everything lately, I've got people calling me, I need to get this done, I need to get that done. I'm like, sorry, I'm busy working, or I've got other things going on. I can't do it, and right now we're in the beginning of July, and I start to get the what I call the hunting fever rush, where people are like, oh my God, it's July, hunting season opens up in the beginning of September. What am I supposed to do? And they start piling up, or they try to do, the biggest pet peeve I have is, if you want to learn how to do this, not everybody can do the same things that I do when it comes to tuning bows without any kind of professional instruction. If you need to do this, learn to do it. But they go and see something on YouTube, and they're like, oh, I can press a bow. I got money. I'll go buy a press. I'll go buy all this stuff. And then they wreck it. And I've had guys come to me knocking on my door at 11 o'clock, which anyone listening to this, please refrain from doing that, because the me that you get coming to the door is not going to be pleasant if you do it again to me now. And the person that did it to me the last time, he's probably listening to this, so he knows exactly who I'm talking about. But for someone to knock on my door at 11:30 at night and say, hey, man, I put my bow in the press, and I don't know how to put it back together again. So he took it completely apart, and he gives me a bag with cables and strings and his bow and says, I need to leave for my hunting trip tomorrow at 6 a.m. No. Are you kidding me? So this guy, I tuned his bow once. He put his bow, and he says, well, that looked easy. And I worked with him in the shop for a good hour, because he had gone to other pro shops and nothing was right. I fixed them all up. He gets in his head from watching me do it for half an hour that he goes spend $3,000 on equipment. I mean, he bought all the best equipment you can think of, spent $3,000 on equipment, and declares himself a bow tech. I'm like, no. Are you kidding me? So then he goes and he wrecks his own bow, and it's been bad ever since. And I'm like, dude, there's some things people are not meant to do without proper instruction. This is one of them. No, but it's so simple. And on YouTube, I even see them doing it, and I'm like, no.
There's the key word, YouTube.
Yeah, it's YouTube, which is the worst thing in the world. He says, and if I need to look something up, I go to Archery Talk. I'm like, are you out of your mind? You're going to Archery Talk to look up answers to your problems? Like, my goodness, What are you doing? But that's the sort of thing that we get. So if your range has somebody there who can do all these services and maybe has a business on the side, and they, because the whole thing is, you have to be careful with that also, because like, I'm a registered business. I pay my taxes. I have everything. And if you got somebody at the range who's doing this for people, like, oh yeah, it's $50. I cut your arrows. I do all this. I get you all set up. I help you out. Sooner or later, it's going to come down to like, have they been, are they a registered business? Because they might get sued by somebody whose bow blows up on them and stuff like that. So they have to protect themselves for that sort of thing. So usually being associated with a range is better. But if you can't, as long as they're running a legitimate business, there's no problem with it. But even if you just have somebody who's there saying, listen, like me, I would prefer, especially with COVID and all that people not come to my place all at one time. So I have my arrow saw. I have a DC converter in my car, and I'll just throw it on the back gate, put it over there. If someone needs arrows cut, meet me at the range. I go over there and I cut it right at the range. You know what I mean? Plug it into my car. Boom, boom, done. I can do everything in my car that I can do in my shop, with maybe one or two exceptions. So if you have somebody who's got that kind of setup, great. You know what I mean? You all get together. You all chip in $40 for an arrow saw each. You get yourself a really good arrow saw. One person has it one week. It goes to the next person. As long as you can keep track of it, there's nothing wrong with that. And then before you know it, it pays for itself. You know what I mean? Maybe as a club donation, you use the arrow saw at $10. Here you go. Guess what? After people use it 20 times, it's already paid for. Those are the kind of things that you can do. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with that, to help each other out. As long as you avoid the snobbishness that comes with, oh, we're an exclusive clique and nobody else can come in here, and, or when new people show up, nobody wants them to shoot with them and stuff like that. Cause I've seen that sort of thing before. They're new. Oh, no. This, they can't shoot with us. And I had that happen already with a couple of guys who shoot pro in ASA. Like, I'm registered in the ASA. I am registered for the pro division. Yep. Have I been to an ASA competition in a few years? No, because the closest one to me is about 6-7 hours away. So I'm like, why am I going to do that? So I haven't done that. But I have other people. Our 3D range is really good. And I have people who shoot together in groups, but they will not have anyone new shoot with them. And I tell them, I said, how are they supposed to know how to learn if they're not shooting with people who have more experience than them? And they're like, that's not our problem. Like, oh, okay, then you're exactly part of the problem that's out there. Because if you're not going to teach it to anyone else, people are going to get, shied off by that. They're going to get angry with it, and they're never going to want to do this again. But me, I don't care if it's a beginner or not. You want to shoot in my group? Come shoot in my group. I don't care. And then what?
I prefer to shoot in groups of people that are better than me because that's how I get better. I watch what they're doing, pay attention, and every now and then they'll drop a nugget for you.
Yeah. And I try to teach them as we're going along, like, this is what you're aiming for. If you look at the binoculars and you see that they probably hit a 12, whatever it is, then shoot for the 12 and shoot for their arrow. That's, like, you really can aim at their arrow. If you're sure it's in the right ring that you want, sure, now you have an aiming point. And they're like, I never knew that. Like, yeah, well, this is the sort of things you have to learn how to shoot your angles and all that. And occasionally I'll get one of these people who has no idea about my past shooting experiences or when I competed and stuff like that. Because even though I'm still listed as a pro, I really don't compete that much anymore. They're like, oh, no, he doesn't know what he's talking about. We're doing our own thing over here, but we're the best at what we do. And it's been, I can count them on one hand, but a couple of occasions where they were talking that kind of smack. And I said, you know something? Put $50 on the table. Let's go shoot the course and see what happens. And I wound up being up by 19 or something like that. And these guys are like, what the hell? I'm like, yeah, dude, just because you don't see me do it don't mean I can't. And when I come here, I shoot for fun, that sort of thing. But if you want to get stupid with me, then you'll see the bad side of me. And the bad side of me can shoot pro level because I am a pro, and I will blow your doors off. And then we'll go on with our normal lives. This is what happens, but you got to be open to all kinds of people coming in. Now, granted, I don't know if you've seen it over there, but over here, oh boy, how can I put this nicely? And I'm not saying I don't like these people. They are all different. But I get the hipsters who come to us now, who are like, hey, this is the new sort of thing. And, okay, and like I tell,
we deal with dumb rednecks. That's what we got to deal with. We don't have too many hippies or yuppies, and if we do have any yuppies, they're shooting trad, and not to knock on them, but they 9 times out of 10 know what the heck they're doing.
Well, like I tell Anthony and Steph, I said I don't care what color you are. You could be black, white, purple, blue, brown, orange. I really don't care. If you want to learn, I'll help you. However, I must admit, I do have a bit of a problem when somebody's walking around with fairy ears on and stuff like that to increase their performance. I literally had a girl walk into the range wearing a fairy costume and fairy ears because she says that she has to look the part when she's shooting a trad bow. I'm like, okay, if that's what you're into. I don't know what they think this is or whatever, but hey, if they're shooting, I don't care. I just find it weird and try to keep a straight face, which is not easy in a lot of these cases. But yeah, this is the sort of thing that we get. And if you're just dealing with what we call hillbillies or the rednecks, I've got those up by my property upstate, and I run into them when I go to different shoots in New Jersey. There's nothing wrong with them either. And not for nothing, don't put it past somebody. Yeah, except for what?
The only problem I have is we had one out here. It was just after we get done with the work party. Yeah. And he was just shooting all kind of crazy. He didn't know what he was doing, constantly hitting the wood around the target. And we're like, oh, God. And we tried to help him, and he just was like, I got it, I'm good. Unfortunately, we had to leave. Some of us had to leave as soon as we were done.
Yeah.
Because we had our plans and kind of left him here. We're like, okay. Then we come out the next day, and wouldn't you know it, there's an arrow in our lawnmower that cuts the grass here way off from where the targets are.
Yeah.
And I recognize the arrow. I'm like, who's that dumb redneck from earlier? What the heck? He hit my... Luckily, luckily he hit the lawnmower in the cushion. But if it would have gone in the front end, we would have been okay. Now we can't pull out targets, can't mow our 3D range. What are we gonna do?
Jeez.
But it's those people that's like, we can help you.
Yeah.
We shoot regularly. If you see my bow, I shoot a PSE Perform X.
Yeah.
Obviously, I know what I'm doing if I'm shooting that monster.
Well, you know, and there's people who actually walk in. You see it more up here in the Northeast than you do in other places for some reason. I don't know why it is. But you have people who know absolutely nothing and walk in with the most expensive rig you've ever seen. And I had somebody walk in with a brand new Hoyt. I mean, he had an axle sight. He had the latest Smackdown stabilizers on there. The total cost of this bow with his arrows, and he had X10 arrows. I'm like, why is this guy running around with X10 arrows and he's never shot a bow before? I think he spent like $5,000 on the rig. And he's like, well, they just set me up at the shop. I'm like, they set you up with professional arrows, X10s. Really? How long you been shooting? 2 weeks. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, you shouldn't be shooting those.
and I'm like,
I like a set of X10s myself. I can't afford them.
So I look at this guy and I'm like, for real, dude? And he's like, no, but they said it'll make me a much better shooter. And I guarantee you I can smoke anybody here, you know, with this rig, and I don't even have to have all that much experience. And that's when it went from the newbiness to arrogance. And I'm like, okay, it's time to teach him a serious lesson.
That's when you pull out a stinger and just...
Funny you mentioned that.
Bass Pro arrows. I'm like, okay, shot for shot, buddy.
I actually, one of my students had a Bear Carnage. I took this old Carnage and I said, tell you what.
Oh, no.
It's 2 inches short on my draw. It's only shooting 41 pounds. Let's shoot a 300 round at 3 spots. Not a single spot. We'll shoot a 300 round at 3 spots, and I'll spot you 25 points. And let's go. He goes, oh, this is going to be easy. I said, okay. But if you lose, then you agree that you don't know anything, and it's time to actually start learning because your equipment is meaningless. And he's like, oh, yeah, sure, but I'm not going to lose. I'm like, okay. So at the end of the 300 round, I had shot at 297 with 24 X's on this bow that was literally 2.5 inches too short on me. And that I didn't sight in. I was using the kid's sight. Like, okay. And this guy shot a 193. I'm like, $5,000 rig, you shoot a 193 with 1X. And that's because chances are you had to hit an X sooner or later just by the odds. Like, yeah. Okay. So do you understand? He's like, I don't get it. They said this. And it still couldn't get through his head that aggressive spending means nothing for talent. So he's like, oh, my God, really? But, you know, this is what happens, and this is what you see at the clubs. And, you know, I think that everything will go right with you trying to steer your club the right way. Hopefully my club straightens out and gets to go where it's got to go. You know, but that's one of those things. So if you can't get a level 2 out there to teach a course or someone to teach a level 2 course for you, let me know, and I'll see what I can do to get down there on a weekend. We'll schedule up the whole thing. It's not a big deal. In the meantime, I've got a couple of listener questions, which you might get a kick out of.
Go right ahead.
The first one, Gerard D. from, get this, Sydney, Australia. Now, this is not the first time he's written me. He goes, hi, Coach. It's been a while since you put out a podcast. I listened to every show with a few of my shooting buddies. We were all wondering if everything was okay, and it's been so long since we have heard anything. Hope all is well, and please do write back. We are also trying to start our own club. I handpicked these out because they refer to the subject we're talking about. We're trying to start our own club here and wanted to know the best way to get a kids program started. We see what you do with your students on Instagram, and it's simply incredible. Maybe we can't pull off results as spectacular as you have, but we like to get the local kids as well as our own kids involved in archery. Again, I hope all is okay, and please get back to us. Well, getting local kids involved in archery, and I think you can speak to this as well, is very simple as long as you have something that's going to keep them entertained. So if you're teaching them and not just giving them the bow and say, here, go for it, and walking away from them, I think they'll want to learn, because kids are into instant gratification sometimes, but if they're not having fun at what they're doing, they give it up real quick. So I think as long as they make it fun for them, I mean, like for my kids over here, I have zombie targets and ogre targets and all kinds of other crazy stuff. But just showing them and then saying, here, if you hold the bow like this and you draw it back like this, you're going to hit the 10 ring, and they hit the 10 ring. Like you said, you want to get kids involved over there with the JOAD program, and I find the easiest way for me to do it is to put the target really close. I put a 50 centimeter target in front of them, which is meant for 50 meters, and it's so big. Yeah. And guess what? They can't help but hit the center ring, no matter what. And just seeing
we have a nice little we have a nice little practice area for coaching only. Mm-hmm. It's got the 50 meter targets there.
Yeah,
and it's maybe 15 yards from where they would be shooting.
Yeah, and I think that once they see, oh, I got success doing this, then they want to come back and they want to do it more. And that's really all it takes. Just keep it fun for them and, keep it interesting. So for Gerard out there, you're listening to this out in Sydney, Australia, just keep it simple for the kids. Put a big target out, let them hit it, let them pop balloons, let them do whatever it takes. Because once you get them hooked, they're going to keep coming back and back and back. And I think your own kids will enjoy it as much as every other kid in the neighborhood. Now, our next question comes from Mike L. from Omaha, Nebraska. And he writes, I just found your podcast and would like to say it's totally awesome. Well, thank you. Lots of info to digest, and it's all been such a super help. I booked a trip out to hunt mule deer with two of my friends, and we were so excited. Excited till I spoke with the actual guide, not the guy at the show, and found out that the average shot we would have to take was between 50 and 80 yards. Oh, boy. None of us have ever shot past 30 yards, and now we're worried about wasting all this money if we can't hit something, or as you say, even worse, wounding something. My pal Ed wasn't concerned till the guide said we had to check out on their range before going into the field and show them we could hit at least 50 yards and a paper plate with our broadhead setups. Oh, this is getting funny. Now it's got us thinking we're all going to lose all this money. I know you don't work miracles, but is there anything we can do? Yeah. Practice. Lots of practice with the actual implements you're going to use. Start out at 20 and 30 and just keep on extending it. The thing is that people forget. For me, I shoot 127 to 135 at max. And that's only because the equipment starts to get a little bit funky after that. But if you remember that shooting 120 is the same as shooting 10 yards, and you keep your form the same and all that, and you don't worry about it, there's not that big a deal. And if you go into it with that mindset, you're not going to have a problem. But as I've told many people, if you go and you're shooting at 40 yards and are just hoping to hit the target, you've got the wrong mental set to begin with. Go in there knowing that if I execute my shot, I'm going to hit it right. And then there's not going to be a problem. And I think you'll be fine. Now, this guy's out in Nebraska, so he's got the wide open fields to practice with and all that. Not for nothing, out here in the Northeast, the typical person has never shot past 20 yards. So when they see me, they get pissed off. They're like, why is this guy putting his target at 80? I'm like, I'm warming up. And they're like, but you're shooting 80. Like, that's unethical. I'm like, it's unethical if you can't hit what you're shooting at. It's also unethical if you're wasting people's time by shooting 20 because you're telling them they can't shoot any further than that. And I don't know if you see that down in Florida or not. Since you guys have mostly outdoor ranges, you probably don't.
Most of our bow hunters here, they're most because the game the game down here, you can easily just if you're set for 20 yards, you're good. But most of the guys who come to our club practice their shot at 40 and 50 on a constant basis.
Yeah,
they don't. They'll sight in as normal, but when they're out here shooting at the targets out here, they're always on the 40 and the 50.
Yeah.
Because they know there might be that chance that they're going to have to hit some farther.
Yeah.
They want to be confident that they're going to hit it.
And that's the way you want to be. And like I tell people, as long as you know that you're doing the same exact thing at 10 that you're doing at 100, there's not going to be a problem. But if you start thinking like, oh, my God, it's 100, that's where you're going to run into your problems. As long as they do it in small increments, I think these guys are fine. When I replied to them, I said, here's a plan for how to do this. And I mapped out a couple different steps to do it. One of them got back to me last week because, this note came out to me about a month ago. And he says, hey, man, I'm already shooting 46 yards. I'm like, great, keep going. And by the time that you're ready to go on that hunt, which you said was late September, I think he'll be at 60 and 70. He should be fine. So, there's nothing that's impossible unless you make it impossible for yourself. And that's the most important thing for people to remember. Our last listener question comes from Jeff K. from Whitestone, New York. That's right around the corner from here. Love the show. Got a quick question on the bow setups for you. Oh, you're going to love this one. I visited a range here in New York City for the first time, and he mentions the range name. Oh, I know those people. I was just looking to get some arrows, and the guy told me I was shooting the wrong setup. I shoot 71 pounds, and my draw is 30 inches. Normally, I shoot a 300 spine like you suggested to me once before, because he's written to me before and I told him exact setup to use. But this guy said it was totally overkill, and I could go with a 400 and be just fine. He also said I was wasting my time with fixed blades and should go with mechanical because they are so much more reliable. Funny thing is, he didn't have any 300s in stock anyway, and kept pushing these Easton 400 spines he had there, which happened to be that spine that he was telling me was so great. What do you think? I told him I'd have to come back, so I just didn't spend my money there yet. Please point me in the right direction if you can. Thanks as always, and keep up the good work. Well, if you want to shoot a 400 spine at 30 inches of draw, yeah, first, if you decide to do that, make sure nobody's around and make sure it's a bow that you don't like very much because it's probably going to blow up. Second of all, I know the shop he's talking about, and they push whatever they happen to have on hand at the time. And the sad part is most shops up here don't stock anything other than 400 spines because that's like the most common thing that they have. But that's no excuse for telling somebody they can shoot a 400 if their setup is wrong just because that's all you have in stock. I mean, for real? I've since written back to him and said, dude, ordering from Black Eagle or something like that online, do not go and drop down to a 400 because it will be disastrous. Plus, it won't tune for anything. And he's gotten his other arrows, and he went back to that shop at the same time with his new arrows. And the guy's like, you're really shooting the wrong spine. And he's like, just bullseyeing everything because they have a little indoor range over there. And I'm like, this is the problem I had with some salespeople who just sell what they want to sell because they have it. But when they start changing the rules and saying, no, you shouldn't be buying this just because I don't have it. You should be buying this because I happen to have it. I mean, lack of information is a dangerous thing. It really is. And I'm sure you see it over there too. You'll see people shooting weird stuff,
Oh, yeah.
And like I mentioned, yeah, go ahead.
I see people shooting weird stuff all the time, but when it comes down to brand and stuff like that, shoot what works for you.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's a Hoyt, PSE, Matthews. It's just like a shoot. If one's going to fit somebody else totally different and shoot better for them.
Exactly.
And when it comes to arrows, you can't play with that spine because you're wrong one way too wrong. You're asking for time to buy a new setup because I just blew up this one.
And when I go to ASAs and they have the speed limit and all that, but I've seen guys like I told Anthony and Steph, I've seen guys that shoot, I think it was a 500 spine shooting 80 pounds. I'm like, just to get flat speed. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. But that sort of thing, I could tell that's an experimental thing where they're trying to get around something, thinking this could give them a mechanical advantage to do it. But in this case, it's just someone trying to sell them something that they got and tell them they got the wrong thing so they can sell something else. And as long as people are in it for sales and stuff like that and not in it for the good of the customer, you'll always have unscrupulous people who do that. This particular place is known for that sort of thing. They will sell anything to anyone without it being the right thing. If it's hanging on their shelf, they're going to go ahead and try to sell it to somebody and tell them it's the best thing since
I gotta get rid of it. Get rid of it.
Got to move that inventory.
It's really wrong for you, but I'll make it work.
And so now we're done with the listener questions. Now we're to that part of the show where normally I get to rant, but if you want to rant along with me, be my guest. The Don't Be That Guy segment, which has been missing for so long. My goodness. Now, I may have mentioned something about this type of guy that you shouldn't be before in the past, but only having interacted with a certain person in the last couple of weeks who is very well known in our industry, let's just put it like that. So what I'll say this time is there are people who have one personality in public and a completely different personality when they're not. And if the camera's not on them or they're not doing something for a video, they are completely different people and not always for the better. So this week's Don't Be That Guy goes out to those people who have that persona in front of others but are completely different once the spotlight is off of them. Now, some of these people include industry celebrities, pro shooters, you name it. One particular person who shall remain nameless, however, he knows exactly who he is. And what I'm going to say is this. At an event that I went to, this dude was there, and he's very well known, and he portrays a completely different person when he's on YouTube and when he's dealing with people at trade shows, that sort of thing. And he had a kid come up to him and say, "Hey, can I get you to sign my bow for me? Sign my bow for me." You think you'd be honored?
This is a kid.
And it's a little kid. Kid's about 12 years old, and wanted him to sign his bow for him. And in front of me and about 20 other people, he's like, "Look, kid, I ain't doing that. I don't sign anything for anybody, and frankly, I got better things to do with my time." And I'm like, what? And the kid was heartbroken because apparently this was like his hero. And guys, not anymore. He's on TV. He does some hunting episodes and stuff like that. And before anyone starts thinking, no, it's not John Dudley. He's probably one of the most real and human people you ever deal with. It's not him. But I won't mention who it is. But I'll just say, I talked to him after that. I said, dude, not for nothing. Kid just wanted that. He goes, "Look, man, you got time for all the little people. I don't. I got sponsors to deal with. I got contracts to deal with. I don't have time to be signing everybody's thing over here because if I did and I started signing autographs, I've had 1 million people lining up for me." I said, "Well, first of all, humbly speaking, I don't think you'll have 1 million people lining up to have your autograph. You're known to some people in the industry and about nobody else who doesn't watch the outdoor channel. Aside from that, I care less. Second of all, if you're going to keep on treating people like that, you're going to wind up treating the wrong person's kid that way. You know what's going to happen? It's going to get back to the wrong person who's going to go ahead and go to someone who knows one of your producers or one of your sponsors, and they're going to dump you like a bad habit. And if you think that karma's not going to catch up with you, it is." He's like, "Well, that ain't going to happen because no one's going to say anything, and I don't have to make time for the little people." And I said, "Oh, okay, sure. Here's the other consequence of what can happen. If you ever do that to any of my kids who would ask you for your autograph or something like that, and trust me, none of them ever will, but let's just say one day, I will personally beat your ass to a pulp in front of the cameras, and no one will do anything about it. And then I'll just blame it on an episode of PTSD, and no one will care. And I'll get away with it. Are we clear?" And he's like, "Look, man, just don't bother me with stuff." I'm like, "Oh, trust me, I won't have to." Somehow, I think this is going to catch up with him eventually. But I bet you've heard of people like this, too. I mean, there's some people, you know, especially if most people don't even know who Jesse Broadwater is unless you're into archery. And he's one of the best shooters in the world. The one thing about Jesse Broadwater, you go and you talk to him, you meet him, you shoot on the line with him. He is one of the nicest people you will ever deal with. You know, he'll take time. He could be shooting a competition, whatever. He'll take time to talk to somebody about doing this or tuning this. He doesn't care. Another one who's like that, who's not arrogant, is Tim Gellingham. Again, not a name that everybody in America knows. But if you're in archery, you've heard of him before. Tim's only problem is, once you get him talking, he's not going to stop. So he's going to keep going and keep going for hours. But these are great.
Last time I was up in South Carolina, I met Jack Wallace. I was like, and he was just the nicest, most, helpful guy out there. I'm like, oh my goodness.
So again, these are real people whose personality on and off the camera matches who they are. Mm-hmm. That's why
they can't be acting like that, especially in our now cancel culture society. Because just that little incident caught on videotape and blasted on YouTube. Yeah, you just lost all your sponsors because now all the people who followed you will think you're a total douchebag and cancel you just like that. So, and don't even get me started on this cancel culture. I can't stand it anymore. I think it's the stupidest thing ever. But now we got to worry about it.
So again, this goes out to all those people who have had the good fortune to be where they are, to earn a reputation. Don't be that guy who's one thing in front of the camera and another thing completely off. Because if you're going to be a great person on camera and a complete and total ass off camera, it's going to catch up with you. Or I am. One of the two. Neither one is going to be good. But it is what it is. And there are so many people like this, it just annoys the ever-living goodness out of me. Yes, I almost said something, but no, I didn't. So it is what it is. But there's so many of these frauds out there, and I just can't stand it. And if you're in the spotlight and you're going to big tournaments, something like that, you're going to see the guys who are great personalities in person and not in person, and they're not faking it. And then you're going to see those ones who are like just all smiles and giggles for the camera. And the minute the camera goes off, they're like the worst human beings on the planet. And unfortunately, there's a lot in every walk of life that we come from. It doesn't just have to be archery. There's people in business. There's people in all kinds of things, political positions, you know.
All sports have that problem.
All sports have that problem.
There's all kinds of athletes.
Politicians have that problem. A lot of people have that problem. But don't get me started on politics. But anyway, so we've been on this for an hour. It's been, enlightening to say the least. We should probably do this again, especially when you get your stuff rolling over there.
I'll give you an update.
You're kind of a regular on Anthony and Steph's podcast, so we'd like to have you on here at least maybe once a month, once every other month, whatever's convenient for you, because we could always talk about other stuff, including doing a target archery podcast, which we discussed before the call. I think that would work out fine too. I've got a ton of information on that.
Get a three-way, me, you, and Anthony.
Oh, gosh. Yeah,
Steph. Might have to do it on off centers, though.
Yeah, Steph would have turned, just that statement, Steph would have turned something into something.
Yeah.
So if people want to find out more about you, where can they find you on Instagram or anywhere like that?
Right now, I'm Instagram. I think mine is Dougie Marholz at Instagram. I don't have much of a Facebook thing going on yet. I'm bad about that. I take pictures and I forget to upload them, or I totally forget to take pictures because I'm so busy and focused on what I'm doing at the moment.
Yeah, been there, done that.
But like you said, I normally pop up on the off-center archers with Ant and stuff, and that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, if we get all let's see, how many is that? All four of us on the same podcast would be interesting to say the least.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
yeah. All right.
I at least I think it would anyway. But this has been great. I know you guys have targets for this week's 3D shoot over there and stuff like that.
Yeah, we have 2 days.
I'm going to start editing this podcast sometime this afternoon.
I hope. Drop any bombs. So
no. Believe me, most of my podcast editing is editing out like little bits at the front, little bits at the back. I really care less about the middle because we try to keep it clean. The one or two times that I have had someone on who's gone completely ballistic on there, I had cut off like 20 minutes of airtime on it. But we don't have to do that with this one. Oh yeah. He just went completely bananas. And I'm
going to get an attaboy from Anthony going, "You were clean. How the heck were you clean?"
Yeah, I actually had one guy that I left the podcast on the cutting room floor because he had gone off such a deep end. It was a really entertaining podcast, and we talked about stuff we had been through together. But it was, too much.
That's you send that recording to Anthony. You go, "You want to release this as an off centers special edition?"
Yeah,
he'd be like, "Dong."
So
done.
That'll do it for this episode of the podcast. As always, if you want to find out more about High Power Archery, you can find us at highpowerarchery.com, on Instagram and Facebook as well. If you have any questions, feel free to send us an email at highpowerarchery@gmail.com. As always, it's never goodbyes until we see you next time. And we'd like to thank Doug for coming on the show. And again, take care and good shooting, and we'll see you next time.